It's the political blast with myself, Helen Thomas, with the awesome Helen Thomas and myself, Ryan Paisley, where Helen will give us the weekly update on politics and the implications for markets. When she turns up, she's normally very prompt, so I expect to see her any second now. I will just put the tweet out to say it's live whilst we wait for Helen. Oh, there she is. Sod's law. As soon as I go and do something, she appears. Let's invite to co-host. Co-host invite sent, I believe. Let's see if that makes its way over to you, Helen. Let me just put the tweet out to say it's live. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Hello, it worked. Hello, everyone.
Hello, how are you? Hello, Richard.
There it is. We're up and out and about today in the cold. I've got a cup of tea in front of me. Richard had 2 Cadbury's Heroes.
Oh, he's living the dream.
Living the dream. Here you go. Here's a question for everyone. First thing, what do we think Richard's chosen from the Cadbury's Heroes?
Bounty.
No.
I thought we'd go
Dairy
off.
milk caramel every time.
Oh, of course it is. Of course it is. Well, before we get into trouble for promoting Cadbury's, let me do the legals. Nothing discussed on this basis session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ Global Limited, Trainers PIQ or PIQ Suite, or indeed the hosts, which, as you know by now, is the awesome Helen Thomas from Blonde Money and myself, Ryan Paisley. So, yeah, what's been occurring?
Oh, well, I messaged you a few days ago.
I should say what hasn't been occurring.
Yeah. I know. Here we all were thinking, it's not even a week till Christmas, and it's all still happening. Although I suspect I think, will be our last one of the year, Ryan?
Yes, I believe it will be.
Yeah, so we'll see you all in the new year. But there's a lot going on. So we've got Canada, we've got stuff in Europe, we've got the UK, and the US, as ever, ticks on. Where do you want to start, Ryan?
It's entirely up to you because I don't envy the decision.
I'm guessing. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because the markets are, apart from this post-Fed move, had been quite quiet, and even then, the move down in stocks came off from a very high run-up. So, it might still feel like nothing's really happening. But Canada, we mentioned a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, didn't we? I mean, basically, Trudeau is toast. It's only a question of when. And again, if you dig around in the rules about this, the bit of background as to why it's come to a head this week is the finance minister, Chrystia Freeland. She was due to give an address about, like a budget address, and resigned the morning of that. Quite a shock move. It's worth reading her resignation letter, which she put on X, because it's very clear, very well written, and very savage to Trudeau. Basically, he tried to replace her with Mark Carney. Madness.
Yes.
And she obviously had to move her to a different position. Funnily enough, she didn't want that demotion, and then said, right, actually, I'm walking away, because the reason we don't get on is we disagree over the Trump tariff response, and she thought that Canada should be much more robust about it. So a pretty fundamental change. And I think another one then that we could say that, with Germany, the win for Trump accelerated Germany's coalition falling apart. I think it's also accelerated the end of Trudeau as well. So, but so, your finance minister resigning is pretty serious. He's managed to put into place someone extremely loyal to him. Shock horror. A guy who is also, I think it's LeBlanc, is that his surname? Yeah. So he so loyal to Trudeau that the families knew each other growing up, and he used to babysit Trudeau.
No, really?
Yeah.
God.
Back in the day. So that's the level we're at, right? Trudeau's so screwed.
Jobs for babysitters.
Jobs with babysitters, exactly. And in fact, they've also a thing of like, ministers might have to double up and do extra portfolios because he can't find enough people to put into his cabinet. Anyway, so you're probably thinking, well, why hasn't he gone already? Actually, it's quite tricky in Canada. So the other parties can force him out in a no confidence vote, but only when Parliament is sitting. Now, the Canadian Parliament broke up on Tuesday, and they don't come back until the 27th of January. Can you believe it?
Oh, so
Maybe,
yeah. Okay, that's
maybe it's too
interesting to
cold.
know.
Maybe it's too
Yeah.
cold. I don't know. Yes, that is. Yeah, that's sort of an official way of doing it. If you want to replace the leader of Trudeau's party, it goes to a vote of the members. So again, that's also tricky. So what you can then do is try and put pressure on him to resign, which is what started to happen with his own, obviously his own.
Oh, have we lost Helen?
Can
Helen, are
I
you
am?
there?
Hang on, how do I?
Oh, no, sorry, you're back. You
Oh,
seem to have broke up.
oh, okay. I don't know why that was. Anyway, so yeah, so his own MPs can call for him to go, but only well, there's a third of them are very loyal, a third of them don't want to say anything, and a third of them do want him to go. But I imagine that that's going to ramp up. Although, are the public very happy with them doing that over Christmas? I doubt it. So that's probably keeping them, from saying too much yet. And then the other thing is that Trudeau's got a few tricks up his sleeve, which former Canadian prime ministers have used, which is people might remember proroguing Parliament from the UK.
Oh, yes.
So you can do that and just say, oh, well, I'm just shutting down his Parliament. And I mean, they have to come back eventually, but it buys you more time, if that vote for that vote of no confidence. So it's in a funny way, it's actually quite hard to get rid of. I didn't realise how hard it was to get rid of a Canadian Prime Minister, although they often have. It's quite tricky for them to have big majorities in Canada, so that sort of threat of Parliament voting you out is pretty real. And the key part to all of this is that Jagjit Singh, the head of I've forgotten the name of the party, but one of the key opposition parties, previously didn't want to sort of wade into this, but has basically said if he's not gone by the time we come back as Parliament, then I will support a no confidence vote in him.
Right. Got
So
you.
it's. I mean,
So I did see, I don't know if this is something to do maybe once they get back, then the timings and stuff, but I did see, I just tried searching for it then on
oh yeah,
Polymarket. There were some Justin Trudeau odds, but I can't seem to find them now.
Hmm.
But it seems a lot of those odds were based around April. So I don't know if that's kind of giving them a couple of months after they get back to get the ball rolling. Maybe I'm not
yeah,
sure.
yeah, it can, and also, I mean, Canada has to go to elections. I think it's by October next year anyway. Maybe there's a sense that, well, if he manages to drag it on, then like maybe he'll drag it on all the way to the actual
Yeah,
elections. But
got you,
I'll have
got
to
you.
I'll have to look into that. The finer points of the Canadian Constitution,
There you
which
go.
normally we don't worry about. But I mean, look, it's the same thing again. We mentioned with Macron trying to. I mean, France is kind of like doesn't. Well, you just don't. We just don't have a government. It's another country without a real
Yeah.
functioning government. At exactly the moment where Trump is gonna come in and do the tariffs in Canada, that is obviously integral to the Canadian economy, isn't it?
So I was trying to like jot up in my head just before we started the show, like what I say, kind of like leading countries, major countries,
Yeah.
developed countries. Sorry,
Yes.
that's the word I was looking for. Developed nations which don't really have a functioning government at the moment.
Yeah.
I've got, so bear with me on this one. I've
Yeah.
got
Go on.
Canada, France, Germany. You could also throw in well, I think you can throw in South Korea.
Yes.
And whether or not you'd call them a developed country, I'm not sure. I think they qualify as a developed country, but even Brazil now looking very shaky.
Yes.
It's all it's like it's just the more time goes on, the worse it's getting for everyone.
It is. It is. And I think when we last spoke about Canada in something like September, when we started doing these Twitter Spaces, we were looking at how many were still in place post the lockdowns.
Oh yes, yeah.
And Canada, I think, was the last one not to have changed. So this idea that incumbents are getting punished, Canada was like the last one to go,
Yeah.
and so almost inevitably it has.
Goodbye.
Exactly.
I will never sing again. I apologize
No,
for
it's
that.
lovely. It's lovely, but I mean, it is going to be relevant for everyone moving forwards because Trump is, he considers the Americas, basically Mexico, Canada, and America, all to be one thing, really.
Yeah.
And when he says, "Oh, it's the 51st state," and the governor of our 51st state is how he looks at Canada. I mean,
Yeah.
that is literally how he looks at Canada.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But no, and then to be fair, it's not. I mean, like when you consider like the currency pairs, how they trade, the central banks how aligned that they tend to have been in the past. It's not the it's not the worst comparison.
No, exactly. I think the other interesting element to all of that is Mark Carney's name coming up. I think
Yeah.
that is I think that's pretty bad for Mark Carney to have been linked to this because you don't really want to be linked to a declining leader who
Yeah, right. So
blew
he
up,
kind
who
of
was
almost wants to keep his
blew it
hands
all
clean
up.
with it, so he can come in and then take over, but he doesn't want to be associated with it whilst
Yeah,
it's sinking.
exactly.
It's far better to be the like the lifeboat than part of the sinking ship.
Exactly. And I think one of the things regarding the new, the government that will replace Trudeau, and this is actually relevant also for France and Germany and, well, pretty much everywhere at the moment, is they've got to all agree on how to govern. So what's interesting about the German election campaign? So that I'm sorry, that's the other thing that's happened. It was always going to happen. That's why I didn't sort of think of it. But the German chancellor had to vote no confidence in himself in order to pave the way to elections. So the German elections in February. But so we've now had the start of the campaign, and the CDU, the right wing centre right party of Angela Merkel, well, formerly Angela Merkel, and SPD, who are Olaf Scholz's current useless chancellor. There's quite a lot of expectation that, somehow they'll probably do a deal together in the end. There's grand coalitions happen all the time in Germany, and they are on so diametrically opposed platforms.
Yeah, right.
It's
It's like
so
this
hard.
isn't like it's not like we've got a load of parties that are kind of similar. Like
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
we're pulling in the same-ish direction. So if needs must, we can all get together. These are like we absolutely hate each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, so we're in a meeting room, and someone was saying, "Oh, we need your meeting room," but that's fine because we'll be done by 9:30. Yeah, exactly. Completely done. Well, and they're sent. It's important. Of course, they're opposed because everyone in the whole world is now opposed about how do we solve all of this. Do you have more government? Do you have less government? Do you cut taxes? Do you raise taxes? Do you cut spending? Do you raise spending? It's these are actually the big questions we all battled through in the 1980s that I guess a lot of
You're
people
not
have
old
maybe
enough,
forgot
Helen.
about.
You're not old enough to remember that. Richard,
Well,
maybe.
yeah, Richard does remember it. Do you want to make a comment about that? You're not even listening. No, he's not even. There you go. That's the support. My business partner. I know you were talking to that. You were. You were talking to the lady and saying, "No, we need the meeting room." Anyway, it's live. It's happening live here, folks.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, right. So we've done. Well, we've done Canada. It's all going to fall apart. And Trudeau's done, and it's only a question of when and how, and even then, it's going to be tricky for the next government. So I think the key point there is Trump is in the ascendancy in any
Yeah.
negotiation because he's got a mandate, he's got all branches of Congress, biggest economy in the world, and yeah, he can
Well,
he can push
so
people
some
around.
news that came out. I can't remember what day it was now, but it's again something that we've mentioned and we kind of predicted. So
Mm,
we do have to pat ourselves on the back when we get some stuff right. But we
mm-hmm.
did say that Trump going all out straight away as soon as he won. Basically, said to Mexico, said to Canada, "Look, unless you sort the borders out, I'm going
Yeah.
to we're going to whack you with tariffs." Mexico turned around straight away and kind of think, well, "Okay, yeah, we'll see what we can do," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then Canada this week announced I think it was I think it worked out as 900 and something $1 million. So it's like 1 point something billion CAD.
Mm.
They're going to now spend on the border to firm it up. And
There you
exactly
go.
what we said. It's like, and
Yep.
I think they're doing this as well because they know because they have a weak/no functioning government. If they
Mm.
don't bend over and bend the knee to Trump, he's very much, as you said, in the ascendancy, and he has all the cards. And that's
Mm.
and you could argue that's also the case for Germany, well, EU as a whole as well, because the German and French governments are non-existent, really non-functioning. So
Mm.
if Trump does start kind of waving a stick towards the EU, there's not really much they can do is from a singular voice because von
No.
der Leyen isn't.
Yeah.
it's all going to be very interesting. I think January, February, March can be very interesting for a lot of places.
Oh, massively. And before we get there, so Italy has to agree its budget by
Oh
the
yeah,
31st of
that's another one.
December. 31st of December. Now, Italy had been sort of cruising along okay, and Maloney has, where France and Germany have, as we've just said, kind of gone to the sidelines. Maloney is in a pretty strong position domestically and has kind of risen up. I mean, Italy is still a big G7 economy. And there's brilliant memes constantly, isn't there, of Maloney and her being friendly with Elon Musk. There was some,
Yeah.
they obviously got on well with each other. But the Italian, I kind of, I do like those memes, but then I also a bit like, oh come on, just female leaders, the way they chat, just calm down, everyone. Anyway, but they have to pass their budget by the 31st of December, which is kind of amusing, really, given that you would think that they probably don't want to be thrashing out budget deals this close to Christmas. But anyway,
Yeah.
it almost certainly will all be. Well, it will probably be fine. I think Italy is in less of a poor situation than France and Germany, although it does, as we all know, have huge debt, always has, and has often struggled with growth. The ironic thing for Italy, the reason it's kind of done a bit better over this last couple of years, where France and Germany have struggled, is I don't know if anyone remembers the COVID. The EU agreed a big COVID emergency money thing for all of the Eurozone countries, where they would all get, they pull together and get loans to get like a fiscal stimulus on an EU
Yeah.
level. Now, because Europe is a bit slower and more bureaucratic at passing this stuff, countries didn't get that money until about 2 years later. So Italy has been living off in the last couple of years, like, oh, lockdown loans, even though.
Finally, they've arrived.
So actually, they've had a bit of a fiscal stimulus. And there's also some interesting things that Italy is passing, like it's telling people, it's allowing people to pay, I think it's 2 years of their income tax up front,
Hmm?
which is an interesting one.
Yeah.
I think in that sense of like, oh my God, we need the money now. We'll worry about the fact we don't have it in another year's time later.
Kick that can.
And I guess it gives people the chance to, I don't know, I don't actually know how that would work because you don't
Yeah, I'm
necessarily
not sure I
know
understand that.
what you're. I guess it's the point is it's you guess if if you've got the cash to do it and you maybe
Yeah.
make something on the upside because
Yeah, there's got to be something
there
back
must
for
be a
the.
way of
Yeah.
anyway, but they're looking at things, they're doing this sort of thing. So just want to keep an eye on, because its Italian bonds had been doing a bit better than everybody else, but
Yeah.
they might be a bit wobbly into year end with all of that going on. On to the UK.
Oh yes.
Oh goodness me, yet another. I don't even know what I would call it now. I mean, people are like, oh, it's a misstep by the government, or it's they're not
They're
breaking.
misjumping,
Then what was that?
misleaping, misjumping.
Yeah,
They're
well,
not
yeah,
steps.
yes, it's not stepping. I don't even think it is a misstep. So the government have said there's this thing called the WASPy women. It's to do with a certain generation of women's retirement age got increased, and then there was a look into the fact that some women felt that they didn't know about that, they weren't communicated this change, and that they missed out on a lot in their pension. And there's been all the ombudsman has looked at it. There's been all sorts of inquiries, and they've ombudsman eventually said, yeah, government could have done more to tell women this change was coming, and they could have prepared for it. So some of them missed out. Overall, this would cost the government between £3.5 to £10 billion if they were to pay compensation. And the government have said, no, we're not doing that. We can't afford it. Which, to be fair, the
Yeah,
Conservative
that's
government
yeah.
had also said they weren't going to
It's
do. But,
in the scheme of things, it's not a lot of money, and it would,
uh, well, yeah, I guess it isn't. I mean, I think the VAT on private school fees was, the government thought it would raise 2 billion. So they were happy enough to do that to raise the money.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like upset people
But
enough for
also,
that.
so just on this as well, whilst we're talking about kind of raising and money and all that stuff. So I did read an article or a post or something I've read that it seems like it's now, I can't remember who did the study. Might have been the London School of Economics, actually, off the top of my head. But the inheritance tax change is, the London School of
Mm.
Economics believes it's going to cost like an extra God knows how many billion more to
Yes.
bring this in, because obviously people changing how they're how they're going to
Yeah.
do their their inheritance kind of planning.
Yes.
And
Yes.
again, it's it's how many think what's it called? Is it the Laffer curve or whatever it's called? But yeah,
Yes.
it's just it seems like some of these policies have been just dropped in with no thought behind it or no real kind of science behind it, not looking at the data.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute there for a second. Yeah, the oh, sorry, I had to move out of that room earlier than I thought.
Oh no!
Oh
Oh no!
no,
And
it's
it's
all right. We're on the
live.
move. We're on the move. I'm outside now. Right. So, yeah, this thing about how much money is some of these things going to raise. The point about the waspy one is that that 3.5 to 10 billion is more. That cost. So these other
Yeah.
ones are behavioural, but that's just an amount of money you're going to give to everybody. So that's why it's tricky for them to agree to it, because that's just a given. It's just going to cost that
Yeah.
much money. But what they're now, whatever you might think about the rights and wrongs of paying compensation or not to people who should have known what was going on, it's starting to look like the government doesn't like pensioners.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
And that's a tricky narrative to deal with. Sorry, Richard just slammed down a bottle of whiskey on the desk there.
Oh,
Interestingly,
all right.
it's
Bit
not
early,
open.
but
So
I applaud
we've moved to a different office. It's full of whiskey bottles, not empty. Sorry, I might say.
it.
Anyway, so yeah, so the government is just continually. Like, it has. It seems to me like the government doesn't understand that when you're in government, you do have to make these kinds of decisions. You are going to have to choose. You're going to have to upset some people. And I think actually, in a way, Keir Starmer embraces upsetting people because he thinks he does understand you have to make decisions, but the bit that he doesn't seem to get is you have to sell those decisions. You have to have a
Yes.
narrative. Blair had Alistair Campbell. He also had a much better economic outlook, of course, but it's because they're trying to say, look, the last government made a mess. We're trying to clear it up. We're having to make difficult decisions as a result. You're not all going to benefit. Sorry about that. And in fact, some people are going to, have to bear more of the brunt of this. But don't worry, we've got to all take the pain now, because in 5 years' time, it's going to be loads better.
So speaking of Alistair Campbell, he
Mm.
tweeted today about him chairing a new group that's been funded to the tune of, I think it was £200 million by two European billionaires.
Mm.
Unless it was satire, but he seemed to be legit saying it. Basically, with the goal to get the UK back in the EU, which is a
Oh,
bit.
well, he does love that. I actually debated Alistair Campbell on the question. Oh no, the question was
Oh,
actually, this house believes that Brexit was the UK's biggest ever policy mistake, which was not the best formulation of thing to argue, because like, you can think it's a mistake, but not the biggest ever policy mistake.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but anyway, it was quite fun debating him until the point where I think I brought up. I'm laughing to myself here. I brought up about lying over Iraq.
Oh, do you know what? I was so hoping you were about to say that. I was like, please bring that up. Please bring that
Yeah,
up.
he went. No inquiry ever found me guilty of lying, and I was like, okay,
Oh,
you didn't actually.
God,
That's a bit
mate.
different to saying I didn't lie. He never. He
Yes,
didn't.
yes, right,
Wouldn't somebody who hadn't
exactly
lied
that.
just say I didn't lie? But anyway,
Exactly that. It's like he didn't
anyway.
deny the lying, just that he wasn't found guilty of it.
But anyway, it was a bit cheeky of me, because you should play the
No,
debating
it's
hand.
Alistair Campbell. Go through your
Well,
boots.
yeah. Anyway, so yes, he is obsessed by this. I'm kind of interested in the number of responses I see on X and Blue Sky about how, Britain, it would all be fine if only we hadn't done Brexit, and it's like, but yeah, I mean, a lot has happened since then.
Yeah, but this is
We
it, right?
we
And
had a
it's not like
global
France and Germany are.
yeah. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's not like France and Germany are in a great position. They're in a worse position than the UK economically and politically at the moment.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's missing other points. I'm fine to discuss that
Yes,
is one issue. Although the FT the FT ran a story from the LSE actually this week
yes,
about a
yes,
study that imports and exports post Brexit were not as costly to the country as had first been expected. Now, at first, I thought, oh, the FT is finally coming out with
Yeah,
some
right.
research that's not anti-Brexit. But then unfortunately, I have to say to give this, I think you have to debunk this story because it looked at the period 2020 to 2022. Well, quite a lot of things impacted Britain's imports and exports in 2020 to
Yeah.
22. I know it was the period just after Brexit technically happened, but I mean that's the hardest part about the counterfactual. I mean, how can you look in any way at imports and exports when you shut the whole country, shut the
This is
whole
it.
world down, and then reopened it? It's
This is it. I truly believe that it's impossible to know for certain any of this stuff
yeah,
because of what's happened.
yeah.
And it feels much more. It's an art rather than a science when people are putting together these arguments.
There is, and look, I just think that there's a lot more to be discussed about about our trade relationships around the whole world rather than just harping on about Brexit.
Yeah.
Um, for example, one of the other things I wanted to mention was next month, Rachel Reeves is going to China with a delegation of business leaders to talk to them about, uh, what's the word, improving the relationship and the like allowing stocks to trade between China and the UK, and
All
asset
right. Yeah.
management firms need to work together, and which is kind of interesting when the whole rest of the Western world seems to be worried that China is more of an enemy,
So
and
this plays nicely into, obviously we do talk about markets as well as politics.
yes,
This plays well into a story that was getting some traction earlier on in the week, which was that this year 88 names have left the LSE, have left the London Stock
mm,
Exchange to go to the US, or to at least leave the London Stock Exchange.
wow,
And we know for a fact, we underperform. The London Stock Exchange underperforms. It's not exactly the place where companies want to come. Yeah, we've got,
mm,
we're basically like miners, aren't we, really, and utilities.
mm,
The interesting thing about this is I think I might have mentioned, or I think we might have chatted to you together about this in the past as well, but also definitely myself and Michael Brown have spoke about it. It's like, where does the blame for the UK, like the FTSE not being attractive to companies to IPO on, or to at least list on? Where does that blame lie? Is that, I'm
mm,
kind of torn between, you can't blame Labour because it's been an ongoing thing for a long time. So it's not Rachel
mm,
Reeves. I'd love to blame her for this. She's not
mm,
helped. She's not the root cause of this.
no,
So is it, systematic kind of just the way we operate with policies? Is it the London Stock Exchange Group themselves, which I believe it? They obviously carry, for
mm.
me, the most of the blame. And also, is it the FCA?
Ooh, I
I'm sorry, it's a bit of a big question
No,
for you,
it
but you
isn't.
know what
It's
I
a
mean.
good
I
question.
think
I mean, I just didn't want to give you I didn't want to give the answer. Well, it sounds like all of them. I think
well, I think you're
one.
right there. I think it is a
Well,
mix.
one of the things I think is relevant here is where your pool of investors are, and
Yeah,
or where or what currency they want to be in. So, the US is just leaping ahead with big pools of money ready to go. It's slightly silly really because we're global, but it does appear that being in the US, being dollars, being part of a huge liquid capital market, yeah, okay, I want to list in the US because I want to reach those guys. It sort of shouldn't matter because we're global, but it
yeah,
does still seem to matter somewhat. Um,
yeah.
and I think that investors in the US have just got richer and richer and richer. Now you might say that is a little bit to do with QE over the years and boosting asset prices. But Silicon Valley, AI, just more money, more optimism.
More glamorous. What? Yeah, but wasn't the Old Street Roundabout meant to be like the tech hub of London at one
Yes,
point? You remember
exactly.
that?
Silicon Roundabout. Silicon
That's it.
Roundabout.
That's the one.
That's it. I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? That says it all
Yeah,
about
that's our
Britain.
Silicon Valley. We've got a Silicon Roundabout.
Exactly. Just makes me think about David Brent in The Office for some reason. I
Yeah,
just
massive.
always feel
Oh,
like
have
that's
you
what
heard the
we are.
news this morning? I think it was this morning that came out. I'm sure it was actually, or it might have been late last night. That Labour's new corruption minister, Tulip Siddiq, whose job it is to stamp out corruption, is
Mm.
under investigation in her homeland of Bangladesh for, wait for it, taking bribes.
Wow. No, I had not yet seen that, although Richard's nodding his head, so he must have seen it. Oh dear.
Classic.
Oh dear, dear, dear. Well, yeah. Tulip is going, I believe, on that trip to China as well with Rachel Reeves.
Oh, brilliant.
But I think the thing actually I take away from that Rachel Reeves trip is that they are desperate to get a win. They're desperate to get money in. Another thing that happened this week was the Royal Mail takeover by Daniel Kretinsky, the Czech billionaire. That was approved by the government, or at least they said they're not going to stop it for national security reasons or anything like that. Because they want to get deals done. They want to get money coming in. Oh gosh, sorry, forgot the most important thing on the UK. It's a really small thing, but it's very important for markets. Sorry, I hope people are still listening. So, Rachel Reeves announced that 26th of March 2025, the OBR will present its updated forecast and that she will make a statement to Parliament alongside this. Now, there had, I'm not quite sure why, been speculation. Well, I do know why. There's been speculation that she'll actually have to do another budget in the spring. But she always said she wouldn't. Going into this election, she promised that there would be one budget a year. It would be legislated for. Everyone would know when it was happening. She wouldn't be tinkering. You know, this is part of her securenomics. Everything must be certain. So she won't be. Well, she's going to be in a bind here come March, right? So either she does announce some big tax and spending changes, but claims it's not a budget. Well, the last person to do that was Liz Truss, which didn't go very well. Or she does nothing, and the market says, "Well, hang on a minute. Lots has changed since then, and you've got less fiscal headroom, and it's a problem, and you need you to do things." And by the way, you're not only not doing anything, you're then not doing anything for another 6 months until the actual budget in the
this
autumn.
is it, right? Exactly that.
Or she tries to cobble together some sort of fudge, and it doesn't prove to be enough for the economy or for the market. So, and of course, if she does do anything at all, she will have completely torn up her own credibility about sticking to her promises.
So this is something that I think I blame you for this, really. So based on our previous talks about the wordings of how things are said, so obviously we've seen a few times which Rachel Reeves will not do another budget. Now, I'm sitting there going, well, that's not Labour won't do another budget in the near term. You see what I'm saying? And I've learned that from you.
Good spot. No, you're right. And also, I went and checked the announcement about this statement because I think the FT reported it as. They were a bit cheeky, actually. They said the way they reported it was, well, because she said she's not going to borrow more or tax more. Therefore, if anything has to change, it'll be spending, i.e., there might be sort of austerity clamped onto things, right, to meet her rules. And that's possible. She could do that. But that's not what she said. She just said, I'm going to make a statement. Now, a statement, it might not say, I'm going to do this tax or this borrowing today, but it might say, I'm going to do something in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
Or if this happens, then I'll do this. So I think all eyes now, therefore, 26th of March, and therefore I think it's going to be extremely difficult for her to get out of that without breaking a promise, losing credibility, or hurting the market or hurting the economy.
Yeah.
I cannot see the path to that going well is very narrow indeed. So therefore, we now know, in my opinion, Rachel Reeves will be gone probably within a couple of months of that statement, I would think.
Yes.
Absent some massively great, huge return to growth and genius sales work by the government, which doesn't seem to be going very well so far. So, I was going to say, if you can get Polymarket onto what month is the chance they're going to change?
It does. Yeah, it feels like the common theme we have, especially for European countries. It's something that you said, last week and probably the week before and probably the week before that. All these things, everything leads us to believe that it must get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I'm afraid
we need
so.
that flush out.
We do. Everyone has to pick a side now, right? So everyone listening to this, every voter, every MP, has to say, we're all in a mess. We got loads of debt during COVID. We haven't got enough growth. What are we going to do?
Yeah, exactly that.
And we're now going to find out where it works. If you want, more government spending, or as in the US, less government spending. There we go. Yes, so we're at the end of our time. Is there anything else we need to finish with?
Briefly, so let's give a quick update as we usually do on the UK general election odds.
Yes.
Conservatives still favourite. This is obviously decimal odds, so 2.66. Labour basically 2-1. That's free. 2.9 on the decimal odds, so free. So basically 2-1. And Reform are at 3.75. And if anyone remembers, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago when we started bringing into Reform into this, I think they were about 6 or 7 at the time, and then they come in steadily. And in terms of next Prime Minister, and again, remember that Labour did win the next the next election, then Keir Starmer would remain, so it might even be after that. Nigel Farage, still favourite at just shy of 3-1. Then it's so on the decimal odds, he's 3.75, but at 8. And Kemi is 4.7. And Boris Johnson, 21s, if anyone fancies on him. And I would just a quick look. It has, I think, after obviously because it wouldn't be Starmer. Angela Rayner is probably the shortest odds Labour MP to be the next leader. But it's still like 16-1. But anyway, something to keep an eye on. And obviously, my question to you every week, especially as this is the last week of the year for us, Labour's performance on a scale of -10 to +10. So I might have to plan that again.
I know. -9.
Oh no, I'm gonna have to come out with a new scale. This is getting ridiculous. It's always on the lows.
There you go.
Well, perfect.
Thank you.
Helen, thank you so much for not just for today, but for all the shows we've done this year. Next year, when we come back, hopefully I'd have sorted it out by then that we actually do this as they go out live on podcasts as well, which would be awesome. Woo! So thank you so much for being a part of this and coming on and expelling all your knowledge on politics and markets. It's been a great help for everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan, and everyone else, anyone who's listened all the way through to all of this since we began. Any feedback, we would greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, my love, big love to you, and of course Richard in the background. And I'll see you all very soon.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
Bye!
Bye-bye.